Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison. I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising as we explore the source code of the universe. Scientists since time immemorial, religious seers, philosophers, people consumed by curiosity as to the true nature of reality have all sought to come to a deep understanding of what it actually is that unites the entire cosmos into one thing. What is the source code? The bottom line. Well, today we have a real treat for you because we're going to be talking to someone who has figured out some very deep truths about the cosmos that are at least pointing toward a source code, if not actually revealing what that source code is. And to tee us up for today, I want to turn the program over to Georg Bach, our Director of Technology, who knows a lot more about physics and source code technology than certainly I do. and
I'm
and
just learning from Bob.
he'll introduce Bob, and then we'll take it away. But thank you, everyone, for joining us today on Humanity Rising. Georg?
All right, thank you, Jim. Well, it's a real honor and um, a pleasure that we have Bob back on the show. We had him on the last Psionic Summit, but it was a bit difficult to compress all his important ideas into the slot we had at that moment for him. So there were a lot of people that actually said, man, you have to give this guy more time. It's so exciting what he's talking about. And so we did. And today he will be back with his own presentation. And I just want to basically really quickly frame why we're doing this in the context of ubiquity ET studies, because some people may argue, why are you getting into, deep physics? Is this really what you guys are about? You're a university that is about humanities. And I would just say, I think it's important that we understand that this disclosure that's happening right now is more than just, ETs and non-human intelligences. It's also about understanding that ancient civilizations on this earth had advanced understandings of our cosmos and thereby advanced technologies. And these technologies exist today, and many of them are suppressed. And with that, I just want to introduce Bob and give the show over to you, Bob. And when you're done with your presentation, we will have a Q&A and maybe have a little discussion. So, Bob, let me see if you can turn on your video. There he is.
Hello, Georg. Thank you very much for that kind introduction. And also thank you, Jim, for allowing me this moment to share with your audience a small amount of my work. So without further ado, shall I go ahead and share?
Please do.
Okay, let's see if we can do this. Okay, can people see the screen there?
Yes.
So, my name is Bob Greenyer, and I've been a volunteer for the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project for the past near 13 years. And so there is a huge body of work, but it got really interesting when I changed my approach in 2015 on the advice of one Francesco Piantelli, where he said, don't tell nature what it is, let it show you. For those of you that did not see the Psionic Summit, I recommend you go and see that because we're going to skip over some things that were discussed there. But I'm going to introduce some other of the body of work that I've shared over the past decade or so that led me to understand there is a repeating pattern in nature that may underpin the whole way that it operates, right the way from the very bottom level all the way through to the tippity top of the top. And it might surprise you that it is, in my view, extremely simple. It is the complexity of the universe that would appear to be born out of very, very simple principle. And Lord Kelvin suggested the vortex, and specifically the ring vortex, the type of thing that you might see someone blowing out of their mouth with a puff of smoke, or you might see a dolphin producing one out of their blowhole. He thought that all matter could be explained by this in the 1800s as a vortex in the ether, the luminiferous ether. But by about 1904, he was suggesting that that may not be the case, because he had described the various Mendeleev elements as twisted vortexes. And as more elements were found and isotopes were found, it became clear that his theory wouldn't explain the observations. He also found that smoke rings dissipate and fail, and so do phallicosolitons, which are half vortex rings that you get produced on the bow of a boat. The vortex and anti-vortex, it spins away from the boat and the energy is dissipated. So he couldn't really reconcile how structures in the physical vacuum, as it were, could persist for essentially all time. And so he gave up on that idea, and there were other ideas that came subsequently. I believe where he was going wrong was he didn't understand that you could do this fractally. And obviously the electron was discovered in the latter part of the 1800s. And this was around the time where he was changing his thinking. And the electron, or a charge spinning around a point, produces a magnetic moment. And we all know that magnets can stick together. Well, the toroidal moment is something a little bit more interesting than that, but it comes out of electrons spinning and magnetic moments. So what you're looking at there on the screen is the main part of the structure. There is a sphere that goes around that, and you can see two kind of like, these are all apple shapes. So you've got a big apple shape here, then you have two apple shapes with these cones coming out, which are similar to the cone on the N level, which I call the N level. And then you have other apples in here, and you have these blue discs and so on. Well, the fractal toroidal moment comes out of these tori, these toroids, that are arranged orthogonally to each other. That is to say, they are arranged 90 degrees to each other, X, Y, and Z. And Z for you guys in the States. And there is a tornado that comes out of every fractal level and goes into a point. And this tornado shrinks on the golden ratio. And there are so many golden ratios in this structure, it beggars belief. And essentially, matter is collected and passed to the center point here. And it is the only structure in nature that is able to do what's called negentropy. That is to take chaos and order it. Chaos and order it into the center here. And it is the tornado, or the whirlwind, that, if you have two of them, produces a ring soliton. And so the only two things in nature that can cohere and would be a principle of life is the tornado and the emergent ring soliton, which comes out of two tornadoes as a bare minimum. And this material is collected, and the neutral stuff can continue through. The other matter gets trapped in here because of the electrodynamics, and we'll come on to explain that in a little bit more detail. But you're probably wondering, why am I here? What does the fractal toroidal geometry enable? Well, it enables unlimited energy anywhere. I'll say that again. Unlimited energy anywhere. It enables faster than light propulsion. You don't need anti-gravity. Anti-gravity is pointless if you don't have a gravitational body to be anti against. Propulsion usurps anti-gravity in every which way you can imagine. Faster than light communication, teleportation, interaction with the Akashic record, and interaction with matter and consciousness. And as you can see, I'm now at the subtor level, and we have a fractal toroidal moment here of -1. And at the sub-subtor level, we have a fractal toroidal moment of -2. And at the sub-sub-subtor, we have a fractal toroidal moment at -3. If we just take this and imagine that this is an n-level structure, this would be, let's say, the x vector, this would be y vector, and this would be the z vector. And for a stable structure, you need minimally a wheel within a wheel within a wheel. You need a wheel within a wheel within a wheel, minimally. And this is how you do the magic. So this is not my work. This is from Nature, I think. If I can see it's in the way of my camera. Or it's multiferroic materials, rather. And this is just for those that really don't know what I'm talking about. I said electrons or charge going around in a loop will produce a magnetic moment. And then I said those little magnets can join together into a magnetic ring. You might be able to get those magnetic spheres as a toy and be able to do this yourself. But when you have a magnetic ring like this, it doesn't actually produce another electric vector. It produces a toroidal moment. If you take that structure, these then bind together in their toroidal moments to produce a second order toroidal moment ad infinitum up to the moment n+1. So this is something you can build and build and build. And this was discovered in 1965 in Dubna for the thesis of this man who unfortunately passed away April 27th, 2024. Vladimirovich Dubovik. You can go and see him on Wikipedia as the inventor or discoverer, rather, of the toroidal moment. And it was not recognized in the West until 1997, so 30 years after he published his thesis. In this particular photo, this was taken in January 2018 in a conference room I presented in Moscow Friendship University in 2015, with many of the same characters in the room. And it was based on one of their leading researchers in cold nuclear transmutation and ball lightning. And he's trying to warn people in the room that you do need to respect this technology, because it'll produce a beam which will literally suck the life force out of you, the chi out of you. That sounds terrible there, something to be aware of, but it is how it does its magic. So, we are made in the image of the technology that runs the universe. I coined that phrase a number of years ago. This is the basic structure. I'll explain or show how I got to that. And it has embedded within it so many important symbols. And when you understand its 3D nature, you will understand that all heraldry, symbols of power, major kings, religions, and so forth have derived their symbols of power and majesty from this symbol. You can see this Italian leaf here, very close on the, sorry, Greek leaf near Delphi. It's on the mountainside there, showing the same pattern. In the center, you have a Dinaric skull. The Dinaric race, it was one of the only people on Earth that were 6'2" at the time, and Tesla, who was 6'2", was a Dinaric. Over the left, you see an Indian, you see Tutankhamun, you see North Korean Yeonmi Park, and a Caucasian. It's an idealized. If anyone's saying, why didn't I have any men in there? Well, I'm a guy, what can you say? Now, before I get on to the ancient stuff, I want to show how in 1957 and even in the early atomic tests, it was very clear to me, maybe it wouldn't be clear to them, but I think it was, that this overall mushroom shape, this plasma structure, this plasma toroid that gets produced in a nuclear blast is essentially the same thing. And this was not lost on the US Department of Energy because they set up Project Sherwood with Winston Bostick from 1948. And in that same year, 1957, he proposed that what he was doing here, which I'll explain in a second, could be the basis for the structure of all matter from the subatomic to the formation of galaxies. And in my work, I believe that I have confirmed his hypothesis at that time. It also says that based on what he had already done by 1957, that this could allow for propulsion that would go up to 450,000 miles per hour. So we're talking an extremely short duration to get to Mars, even with where they were in 1957. Essentially, what he did was he had these little buttons, titanium deuteride, and he would do a plasma discharge. This would produce a plasma ring of deuterium and titanium ions. This would pinch off, and he would produce at least 2, but up, you've got 8 here. And these toroids, which you can see here, would then form a toroid of toroids. And a plasma toroid became the word plasmoid. It's an abbreviation. By 1980, when he was concluding his work, this paper with Nardi shows these impacts of these structures onto a witness material, and he describes this D4D ring with spokes under the surface. So he's talking about this here, the D4D ring with these spokes. So he never talks about the fact that the spokes are the orthogonally arranged tori. Did he know? I suspect he did. So how does this work? Well, there is a universe-wide condensate of relic neutrinos. What do I mean by that? These are not nuclear neutrinos. These are a structure that are universe-wide. And because they are all at 1.95 Kelvin, they're all at exactly the same temperature, having been supposedly left over from the birth of the universe. They share one wave function universe-wide. Because they're neutral, they penetrate through all ordinary matter. That is to say, there is one wave function structure that is completely universe-wide. They can have fractal toroidal clusters of these structures, and they are in fact chi, in my view. Low and medium energy ones are in the environment, and these are called static electricity. They are also inside all atoms. Even a straight proton, a straight hydrogen nucleus, has a cluster of these in there. All matter, that is to say, ordinary vacuum objects, proton, electron, and neutrino, they have them. Chi and exotic vacuum objects pull relic neutrinos through their core and via toroidal moments share information with the condensate. So essentially, an ordinary vacuum object, that is to say a proton, electron, and neutrino, are stable in our space-time indefinitely because they are at balance and they breathe in the relic neutrinos. If they're under-energized as, let's say, an atom, they will take a little bit of energy out of this as it goes through and keep those electrons spinning in their orbit. If they're over-energized, it will expel the energy through the shell into the condensate. So there's this yin and yang breathing process going on with all matter. And in fact, it is this flux of relic neutrinos and condensation of relic neutrinos in clusters, larger exotic vacuum clusters inside the Earth, magnetohydrodynamic structures, which this is, that allows for the condensation of this very rarefied matter into ordinary matter, which allows the growth of the planet. And because it's condensing this rarefied matter from all around the Earth, it is a model of gravity. And so it pushes down on you as there's effectively a well of this stuff constantly being sucked and made into dense material. Anyway, you can have, in ordinary matter, it at least sucks in the cosmic background neutrinos, but in exotic vacuum objects, it pulls in large clusters, and that's how they maintain it. And they produce a bubble at a very specific radius, and inside that radius, there is new metrics of space-time. That is to say, epsilon zero, the dielectric constant, the physical vacuum, is different. That means time is different and the speed of light is different relative to the outside. It also means that the matter that is trapped in this bubble probably will not interact with ordinary matter in our space-time. They're just, it's like having two objects and the grid squares don't interact. And so they can literally pass through each other. Well, exotic vacuum objects was coined by one Kenneth Radford Shoulders. And if you've ever used a computer or you have used a phone, he invented the screening technology for microelectronics. So he's credited as the father of microelectronics. But he's also credited with developing the quadrupole mass spectrometer. And then he came across, I think he was assigned this work by the CIA to investigate John Hutchison, as he was basically the expert. And after investigating John Hutchison, he realized that there was these very special structures, like ordinary vacuum objects. Ultimately, he was to call them exotic vacuum objects because they behave, they're self-similar, they're as above, so below, but they create their own space-time bubble, and they can exist for a period of time. And so he has an image here of a single one and a cluster of them self-organizing. So that is how this works. And what I've got over on the right here is the ankh, and I've placed the ankh in what I believe is the correct position for it. That is to say, the two arms of the ankh go to the center of the main tor, and the center here is at the Christ center, the Chi-Rho center. I'll explain that in a little while. The input comes up here, and this shape here is the shape of the toroidal moment in a 2D section. And with normal electromagnetic waves, you have electric and magnetic waves. You can do amplitude modulation, and you can do frequency modulation. That is to change the frequency or change the amplitude, means of communicating. With the toroidal moment, which can have 2 levels on up to 48 levels on every fractal level, each level can have up and down speed and amplitude. It can also have pitch, speed, and amplitude, both infinitely variable, and angular rotation at each fractal level. The ways to encode information in this system, and also considering it can be out of phase, are absolutely unimaginably mind-boggling. And it is currently being used for communication, which cannot be hacked, instantaneous communication with submarines. So here is a picture I took in Karnak, and very often you have the ankh associated with the Sothic triangle, and you also have chains of ankhs like this. Well, this is the Sothic triangle. You take a piece of string 22 units long and 4 units apart on the bottom, and that gives you basic structure. It's very close to a golden ratio cone, but it's not quite accurate, but it's good enough for a mason to do. And the description of how to do that is in the Temple of Osiris at Abydos. For the Egyptians, from this loop point down, is the key to all hidden technology. And the actual ankh itself is the breath of life, chi and prana. And absolutely everything here is what I have found to be the case. So how did I start this? Well, I didn't start looking at nuclear bombs. I started looking at low-energy nuclear reactions. And in the late Neil Crichton Gould's experiment, LION, in 2017, which was a little unit like this with a reactor in one side and a control in the other, he used thermal and EMF stimulation with nickel, diamonds, and deuterium oxide. My colleague noticed on one of my SEMs that I took these little patterns, and when I looked into them closely, they were extraordinary. This track is a separated track, and it has these little wings and this thing coming in, and there's actual copper oxide is bent over. Then on the outside of the reactor, we found this structure, which was centered at this point on this helical, tornado-like structure that's only on the top, not on the bottom. So there was a flux coming from here and down here, and you can see the flux around here and the flux around here. This one is smaller, this one is bigger. Again, on another part of one of these reactors, this is line 1 again, we found this structure eating from the inside to the outside. And this is on top of this. It's bigger than this one. One is in front of the other one. And it also has these vortexes, 6 major vortices and a vortex in the center. And this is chewing through fused quartz. The temperature of the reactor nominally was only at 1050 degrees. Fused quartz melts at 1700, etc. degrees. So this is an impossibility. And over a period of time, and here's a close-up. We came across many of these structures, and this is a close-up on one of those prints. This should not happen. Somehow the copper oxide has been fluidized. In this case, this is Brown's gas, or in this case, Amarza gas, on a tungsten electrode. You can see the video of this experiment, and within seconds, it produced such an intense vortex here that there's a diamond film here. There's a sphere of metal that wasn't there before, and it's being disassembled from the tungsten into all of the elements in your body. And so I came up with this concept initially of what was going on. And with a lot of other experiments, we end up understanding that it's a 2D structure here, which I showed you earlier, and it has the yin-yang. This is the ones I showed you. This is in cavitation, which I'll show you in a little minute. This is in a plasma reactor. This is in ultrasound in water. And on this one, this actually shows a 2-bar spiral galaxy, exactly the same form. It shows disassembling matter at this point, that is the yang, and it's going through a wormhole and coming through this side, and it's assembling matter and making heavier element here. And we found some silver here, which is heavier than iron. Okay, so the next major waypoint was an examination of a Hutchison sample, Hutchison effect. Hutchison was the man, a Canadian, who looked at Tesla and electromagnetic waves and did some novel experiments in Canada in the 1970s. And it was Ken Shoulders that was brought in to investigate what he had done, and from that he developed exotic vacuum objects. Well, the project purchased some samples from John Hutchison, and we found 4 toroidal quantization levels, with the upper level having 48 divisions, and these were again orthogonally arranged. And so I derived this structure on the 17th of February 2020. It was later on in plasma experiments that we were able to find similar structures produced from a ball lightning that we synthesized that flew off periodically and collided into this cathode sheath here, the fused quartz again. And when it impacted it, it produced 6-order structures, 4-order structures, multi-order structures, depending on how much time it had been organizing. And you can see the Tor in the center of here, and I've got a close-up of this later. The non-radiating boundary, we'll talk about those in a second. So then we have the physical embodiment of these materials here in another plasma experiment by Henk Urian. And we have non-magnetic materials, diamagnetic materials rather, orbiting around like carbon and copper, and calcium and oxygen here, paramagnetic material in the center. This is a 2-order substructure with 15 n-1 levels. This is 32 and 6. This would be 48 and 6. This is 3 and however many it was. So you can see how they can organize in different ways. So I sent this image, which I'd already shared with the Russian community, and this one was the first collapsed wave function of this material to the Russian community. And they sent back this paper without comment in 1st of May 2022, and this is based on Soviet classified energetics research. And how I describe this structure here is exactly how they described it. Current loop, loop of current loops, loop of current loops. And that is how I describe this would build. They had already done it in the 70s and 80s, probably based off the understanding of the toroidal moment. Well, in this paper, it talks about how at the center of this wheel within a wheel, wheel within a wheel, you get a closed Poynting vector. And if you go a wheel within a wheel within a wheel within a wheel, you get a closed Poynting vector 90 degrees orthogonal to another closed Poynting vector. And this allows you to capture vacuum fluctuation energy. And this, they call this electromagnetic phantom. And later, Stanford Linear Accelerator, Freiberger came up with the phrase vacuum currents, but essentially the same thing. But the Russians were decades and decades ahead. So that's in plasma, and in Hutchison effect. In cavitation, this process all occurs as well. So this is the classic cavitation bubble flow, and you can see the water collapsing in and producing, and this is known to be a toroidal vortex structure coming in here. And over here is a electrode discharge explosion underwater. You can see that the non-radiating boundary, that's this area here, that's what the radiating boundary is where electrodynamics cancel out, and they have no electromagnetic waves coming out of here. It's only scalar and vector potential. I won't go into those. You can do the work in this field to understand what that is. But here we've got cavitation bubble, and it's collapsing in the same way that this, and it's made, this is the surface of the water. We're actually looking at this upside down. It's done this triangular cone above the water, and it's now pulling a thing back into this central point, the phase singularity. Now, whilst I'm here, I'll just point out that this is the Visa Capices, the first symbol of the Christian church. And this point round here, and this point round here, and this torsional flow in here is the Chi Rho. These are the first and second symbol of the Christian church. Anyway, so Ultra, we did this experiment called Ultra. You can go and find out how to do it. Anyone on the age of 3 can conduct the experiment safely. It takes about 7 minutes of your time. Essentially, this is not our work, but this is in other cavitation work. These are regularly arrayed structures, and we have a wheel comprised of 2 wheels, and this wheel comprised of 2 wheels is connected to a wheel comprised of 2 wheels, and these 2 are connected. So you have a wheel in this wheel, in this wheel, in this wheel. So there's at least a wheel within a wheel within a wheel structure. Here's another one where we have a singularity here and an antiphase singularity here. This exactly matches up with the spiral galaxy from the James Webb Telescope. I've done all that work. You can go and see that. So essentially, the basic magnetohydrodynamic structure, and that's what this is. It's acting, electrons acting in a magneto way, and it's using fluid of electrons or ion particles in water in this case. It produces a similar nested vortex, which is a whirlwind tornado. A minimum of 2 subtors at sublevels and a maximum of 48 at sublevels. It is replete with golden ratio. We're going to see that from physical evidence. Produces hollow spheres and it collapses matter. This is the phase singularity, and there's the link to the source for that. So here we go. That's the 3D structure. That's the 2D schematic. Here's a close-up as I showed you. And they have these disruption beams come out. Now, in the last couple of weeks, a guy called Tibby in Europe here has simplified a selection of experiments and come up with a simple one. All you need is a 10-cent capacitor, a 4,700 microfarad capacitor, charged to about 30 volts, and some foil and some water between 2 foil plates. And you can see it's these structures in a regular array. And if you can imagine that this is the underside of the top foil with all these little dims. If you can imagine that an explosion, a discharge happened under the foil, and this would be the foil layer, and a bubble happened, it would produce a cone like you see here, and then there would be collapse back in to the core, which punches out this hole. Now, there's a very key signature of an iron-rich crenellated sphere appears to be produced in this system. So there is now no excuse to see, and it would appear that this is what transmutes matter, and in this case, particularly from aluminium, fusing 2 aluminiums, 27s to iron 54. There's no excuse to find that you can do transmutation. Now, in the mainstream Physics, and this from Physical Review B. This is published in 2014. This is from the American Physical Society. They're using what they call the axial hypertoroidal moment. So in Russia, it's called supertoroidal moment. In the West, it's called hypertoroidal moment. If you want to research mainstream papers on this topic, I call it fractal. It's fractal. The hyper and super, they sound like marks to me, and they don't explain what it is. It's fractal. That's what it is. It's self-repeating, self-similar structure that has a simple rule for each fractal level. Anyway, they call it a hypertoroidal moment, and they show that depending on the axial moment, end up going from a ring or an apple shape. And on the bias, you can have an apple going one way, going the other way. I entered this a number of years ago on 28th of September 2022. Predict might see something like this. In Huang et al., and having showed Huang before I got a sample analyzed from his reactors, published in Nature Reports. I'm a co-author on this, and it's a using low-energy nuclear reactor based on cavitation. I asked for some samples, gave me some samples, March last year samples, and there were thousands of structures. This is a yin. This yin has a yin. This yang has a yang and a yin. One is a vortex and anti-vortex, and in orthogonally arranged. I will show you that this is the. Here is another structure embedded itself into copper. It's embedded itself to copper, and it's exactly the magnetohydrodynamic apple. There is a reason why the apple was accredited through the knowledge of, not that it is in the, but it was given by the Greeks, because the Greeks understood this tech, or someone in Greece, this technology. So the apple did. And also, apple is a symbol of gravity works, in my view. I think that's why it considered the inspirational, the normal theory of gravity. Anyway, so what on the next slide? This 20 scale, I'm not going to change. What I'm going to do is switch to another, and you're going to see the wheels and how they're arranged. There we go. Same scale, exact magnetohydrodynamic structure, the wheels within trying to fold over on it. And here we go, boom. Now you hear that this one didn't really fold over on itself, it actually way, but you can see the impact of the vortex structure through exactly and precisely the right side. To actually see these things break in the other orthogonal plane fold, and it's expelling some that was sucked in. Structure here, it is this one has died. This apple has died. It's close to the copper oxide, and the internal wheel keeps spinning. You make these things, the more stable. That's why electrons, protons, and it can exist permanently in our normal space. But these exotic vacuum objects producing these things that are unstable unless them fed. And got unfed, that was turned off, it died, the substructure broke out, and it made this hole for these two substructures. Here's another one. We had a collapse on the surface. You're going to see the golden ratios here. There's a golden ratio between the top of the apple and the center of the vortex, and the center of the vortex and the point of them here. And this is orthogonal fractal layer. Also, there is a golden ratio between this size and this size. And there is a golden ratio between how it reduces. This explains the golden ratio of nature, because this is the mental root level access for how it works. Now, what you can hear is out of this structure, everything goes this way, but the pressure builds up here, comes out. Here's the subtor and the other subtor, and this one broke, and it spat out sub-subtor here, and it's subtor there. You can see the n-1 is 2. So this one came out of here because this one, the casing went away. This cell here survived, but point died. This one got stuck. But the internal parts of it were continuing to spin. Proves categorically from experimentation that within the wheel, the most stable structure. And this all ad infinitum. So vague plasma experiments, this is the structure, and we produce an alpha conjugates, that's neutrons and two protons. This is how you build matter, and it all goes into what I call the box and the smaller boxes. Matter can be disrupted, and here is a ball lightning picture, and this is what these things are. These are technical versions of the natural ball. Here is our structure. The caduceus, one of the oldest symbols known to man, going into the head of the caduceus, and here, this iron-rich crenellated sphere. This material spewing out that came from over here. We have a substructure that we're here coming out with its own core here. So this is an N minor, this is the N. That is where the facing is. This is one collapsed ball lightning. The physical review letters silicon and iron in the of the ball lightning observed. You can get this on Wikipedia. Silicon oxide, calcium oxide, silicon, iron, and calcium oxide of the Earth's crust. So that's a bit of Sami there. Here is Aga Kim, and this until Göbekli Tepe, the oldest megalithic structure that is 5,100 years old. And this here that I went to is with the equinox sunrise, and you have the winter and summer, the winter and spring equinox. But that most fascinates me, this one on the right. And I had this model before I went in, and here's a video of me at this internally, and hopefully you can hear the sound.
So I think this temple, which is a better energy structure shape, is properly constructed with the central channel and the two holes where the...
So you have a vortex and vortex as part of the substructure. Here you have the beam coming in.
So
this is the altar, the chi goes.
Both sides, and actually on the
this
right
is an energy. In
here,
fact, when I've walked into the first time I do any research, when I go somewhere, I go in clean room. And when I went into the first of these, I said, oh my God, this is an energy structure to my wife. And I thought someone must have worked out, and apparently someone in the 1800s said it was an energy structure. Here is another one here. And you can cascade this because, as I said, the toroidal momenters, you can link one into the other. You have a vortex and an anti, and then you compress it, and even an anti-vortex here.
Is one of the sides.
You will be channeled up to the high.
Bob, we hear the audio of the video and you on top. It's difficult to see what...
You can hear it.
Yes.
You can see
It's
an area for a vortex to form on this side. And indeed, a little while ago, I saw the...
Yeah, first I'm going to pause
that. Like dandelion seeds or...
When I first came into this one, yeah, if I can get to it again.
Here is the...
Oh, God.
seeds that were moved.
Anyway, I cut to this one. I'll talk over it. I'll turn it down.
Here is the...
Okay, there were like seeds here, like some dandelion seeds, and they were spinning around exactly in the correct place. Well, how could thousands and thousands of years since, over the years, not notice? And so when I went back, I found out one did realize it was an energy structure. Okay.
Bob, sorry to interrupt.
And we'll find out.
It seems like your audio is kind of breaking up since a few moments. Like, maybe it's your mic.
I will kill that.
Yeah, it seems like maybe it's the mic you're speaking into. It's when you're speaking just like this, it's kind of breaking up a little bit. It's difficult to understand you now.
Okay, how about now?
I thought it was your connection
okay?
strength, but maybe it's the mic connection.
Okay, mics for now. Let me try that. No. that would be. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Can you hear
maybe
me?
count to 5.
Okay, maybe there's a with the connection.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but it doesn't say that you have bad connection, and the video audio in the video was also fine, which that's why we're thinking maybe it's your microphone connection.
Okay. All right. I can switch to MacBook microphone. Okay, how's that? Is that okay?
Yeah, let's try that with a different microphone. New luck.
Okay. All right. Just let me know if there's any problem. Okay.
Seems
So
better.
Cavitation is a bit younger, 200 years younger. This is right next to Valletta in Malta. And again, it's an energy structure. And this is very interesting. If you remember, I showed in this structure, this secondary end core coming off at the golden ray angle. They have this, and this happened in many experiments. And this golden ratio angle coming off is going second a series shrinking chambers. So I would believe in understanding that this is a chi energy concentrator. It went here, it would fire it up there, it would go into this structure, and then this would throw it into this structure and amplify the chi as it's going through. So it would be pretty mad if this was optional to be standing up at this end of the device. They built these canopies over the. They've done this apparently at Göbekli Tepe. They did identify these rocks were rapidly having been uncovered at the beginning of the 1900s. Anyway, why am I showing you this? Because of this tuxine, they have vortex and anti-vortex. This is just a replica here. Original is here from the museum. And this is the spiral design, extremely eye-catching creation, which attracts much interest and speculation as its meaning. Recognized wide as a symbol of big and end of life or eternity, its conspicuous presence in the temple creation, ceramic design, and other art suggests that it is an image that had that was common to the multi-islands. I agree. In other parts of the Tal Tarkshin, they have this again is in the entrance to the museum, and it's orthogonally arranged. You have a vortex and an anti-vortex, vortex and a vortex, and this is arrows are pointing up. And they've rotated this one. This is on the left-hand side of the entrance. This is on the right side of the entrance. They've rotated it 90 degrees. There's so much important information encoded into this, boggles the mind, and it's lost on almost everyone that's ever it. And they also, and I will do a separate presentation time as to why this is important, but this is essentially what's common street vortex and the base of turbulence and the basis for chaos, and out of chaos comes order. You can only create the tornado by creating, the chaos. I won't go into everything that I've discussed because we'll be here for the rest of our life. And so I will talk about, and so this was from, 1600 BC. This obviously is 4360 BC. And I've showed how the Great Pyramid exactly and precisely is made on this schematic, as is, by the way, the Christian Church, as is, by the way, the Vatican, of which if you center the Chi Rho on the obelisk, of course, that's in the Peter Square, everything lines up, and the same for the cathedral at the other end. But anyway, this is a cheating device, and I've explained this in detail in other presentations. I won't go into this here. Shortly after the claimed date destruction of this is the whole Seth stuff here, and this exactly and precisely showing how it looks. You've got a a mirage of the Sothic triangle ankh. The ankh is effectively called a topological monopole. It does work. One is the yin. They have to be in balance. So you've got Horus and Seth here battling it out. You've got kind of like construction and breaking stuff up, life and stuff on this. This one is always slightly above this one, and they've got the bottom line of the torus here, that part of the vortex, rect and aligned. You have this worm is a little higher, and these symbols are a little, because that is how it works. That is you see under experiment. The E will come up here. This is the top of the point of the Sothic triangle's notch, and it comes up in here. Ka is the Holy Spirit, and here we have the scarabée, which is centered. It's got its center where it would create new life in a ball. New life in a ball would under its back. These are what I shit rolling dung beetles, and this is transformation, rebirth, and so forth. That is the symbol what the scarab made, and everything you need to know is in this one symbol here from 1971 to 1926 before Christ. A little earlier than that, Stela of Anshi Adad, 814 BC. This is in the museum. This is my photo. And around its neck, the symbol of God-controlled power, the symbol of controlled power. And although this is 2020, 30, or 30, nearly 40 years ago, the cuneiform on the side is 1,000 years earlier. So this actually represents technology that's older. So how does this link to the science? This is a reactor and a plasma sample from a plasma reactor. I analyzed it, and we have 2-order fractals, 3-order fractal structures, 4 fractal structures where the beams do not, and you have a square hole rather than a paisley, with the symbol of the contact point of the tornado. 5, you just have a twist. 6, you just have a round hole. 6 is nearly perfect. When you get to 8, you get structures forming inside. So let's have a look at what these, where you can see the nature. This is our plasma on copper experiment. This is in the bubble test. This is a lion experiment. And here there is a out off the coast of Florida Keys. And that's because you have these disruption beams coming out. You get this vortex. Again, on a 3-order structure, you get a cell here. There's a 3-arm galaxy type structure on lion experiment. This is in the plasma, copper oxide here. And here is in steel with triangular holes on either the vortex. This might be extraordinary, but I would like to show you this pitch symbol. Now, in 2021, a great discomfort during the thing that happened, and took my family, and we studied Tish stones, which have never been explained. But here is one of the classic symbols from the 6th century AD. And again, this is triangular holes cut in the magnetodynamic structure. Therefore, they're multiple structures that do not move. This one has order structure made of 3 orders, making the Tor. You have diffused chi coming in a vortex, coming out fleur-de-lis. And then from the environment here, and this symbol over here is like, you can actually see this symbol undone in the Knights Templar 12th century cats under Vienna. There's a big wall that is this structure. This is basically the vortex from the cosmos. The chi comes in through our self-organized plasma toroid or water toroid and comes out as condensed chi that goes into lungs of the life. So that's the breath of life. Okay. Here you can see a 4 structure, and when you get a structure, it's the first time you get God's control power under control. This 580 BC, again from the British Museum. This is which is where the Knights Hospitalier lived before they went to Malta, and you can see the structures here as you saw on the 6th to 7th century Picticians. Here is a close-up of that structure that I showed you earlier on the fused quartz with the radiating boundary and the fuzzy bit on the out. This is a 4-order structure on that piece of quartz with the vortex coming into the center. So does this play to the symbol of God-controlled power? Well, this is 4th century BC in northern Italy. There's many of these two stones up there. There's also one in Ilkley from past AD. You have a yin-yang, 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 which must necessarily have at least orders of a torque. So they'll have a wheel in that wheel, and that wheel makes the wheel within a wheel that produces the moment through there. This apparently, according to Wikipedia, sun cult that claims that the symbol represents how the sun works. They were right. This is the symbol of God-controlled power. This is a 4-4 Tor structure. So there's 4 around it. Remember, every level had from 2 to 48, and then there's 4 around here. So on the next, I will show this. You can see the structure here. Now, how does it play to this symbol here? Exactly and precisely technology presented, which is the will of God-controlled power, and it's from possibly 3,000 or whatever years ago knowledge. Now, in this presentation, which I won't go over, Ode a little crazy, this is the first symbol of the electrical engineers in the UK. They chose this cross. And when you understand what I've just showed you, I will to decode the Sator Protas square, which has not been decoded for nearly 2,000 years. And so it appears in there, and it means creator from alpha repeatedly bigger, comprehends and whirlwinds. So this wasn't a Christian symbol as it for a long time. It wasn't the Knights Templar cross. It was a symbol of deep understanding about how the universe works. This is a 5-order structure with various experiments. This is a 6-order structure with various experiments. And of course, this is the cell unit, the flower of life, as represented this Swedish structure. Okay, so how do you interact with consciousness? Well, someone tried to do something like that using George Hassel's integratron, and guess how many structures he had around the outside? Sections times 3, 48. There's a Tesla coil in there. This would have probably done the job if it was completed. Dervishes, they go through a trance and in Sufism, and they end up connecting to the divine through a similar sort of process as this would have done. When you get a beam of the chi, it will connect you to the divine. It can also be quite harmful. This is Hal talking about fractal toroidal communication method. This is his patent, 1993, after he handed a psychic spy program CIA to a science application national corporation in 1992. This is from 2020. Magnetic vortex and vortex in the brain, cognitive tasks in a conscious. This here shows that the brain produces moments. That's how you interact with the Akashic record. That is what I described in this video. You can get from that link. I also went into how UFOs doing this, that whole process there. Okay, and Nina Kagina used this. I won't go into her. I did a whole presentation on that as well. So where can you see me in 25? I can see me at ICCF 26 in Japan, May the 26th to the 30th. That's there. Cosmic Summit, North Carolina, USA, from June the 20th to 23rd. And if you use this Tesla discount code, you get 10% here for the Clovis Pass. Tech, New Mexico, August the 6th, and Alchemy of Prague in the Czech Republic, sometime September to be discussed. So there's much more I could talk about. I would like to take questions, but before that, I'd say thank you to the organizers of Humanity Rising, all of the visitors to the MFMP, all of the researchers and peers that have worked with the MFMP, my past and present, especially Matt, Ryan, Alan, Henk, and Show, supporters of my personal blog at review.icu, and Charles, Stephen, Goran, and all the many donors, big and small. So I have many more things. If people ask a question, maybe I can delve into those. But essentially, you are talking about the power of whirlwinds, and it's happens in rotating water and rotating, which is polar, is therefore charge separated. It also happens in rotating plasma. This is rotating water. This is rotating water, and these things are caused by rotating plasma down here somewhere, like these kind of things. That's water, actually. This is plasma. Okay, so if anyone's got any questions, I will take them now.
Yes, thank you so much, Bob. Wow, it's been astonishing to see this again, especially this one silver stone. It's just so clear that they're talking about this. I mean, what else could it be? It's just the evidence is a bit staggering. Okay, so
well, I mean, I could give you any culture. They knew it. They all knew it.
Yeah. The Christian church you mentioned, right? You didn't have a slide on that, but you mentioned that. For example, our university goes to Chartres Cathedral every year, and it's a very special cathedral. And you mentioned that this structure is actually also at the basis of how churches are designed. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Yes.
I can show that. You can go and have a look on remote.view and type in Christian church, and I show the overlay of this fractal geometry over and a Christian church, and it's exactly and precisely correct.
Okay. Well, I'm seeing that your connection is a bit challenged. Now I have red bars here, and I think the audio wasn't always optimal, but we'll try to take one or two questions here. So, of course, this question, you knew it was coming. I think it was, who was it? At the very beginning, somebody asked the question about it was Jonathan, asking about the Giza pyramids and these. We now know how serious we're supposed to take them. Do you have a general take on these findings and if they relate to your findings?
Are you talking about recent scans of the Giza pyramid?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Yes.
With the tube beneath the pyramid and the boxes underneath those.
I do not think they are plausible. I've done 3D for most of my career, and the data that I see in that presentation, I don't know how they make conclusion to get the 3D models that they make. However, this Sunday I will be proposing a different method for scanning, which I believe will give a very accurate internal structures. And it's using this technology.
Okay, so you're not quite sure about the validity of these scans, if they're a hoax or not. It seems a bit off to you.
Okay.
Is that right?
I'm going to try and switch to a different connection here, because it really is terrible. It's not your fault, I don't think. Give me a second. I'm going to shift phone connection because it's just bad.
Well, Bob is sorting that out, everyone, just so everyone knows. And you should Google the latest theories on the Pyramid of Giza, but they've done aerial radar over the pyramid and found that beneath the bottom square of the pyramid, under the earth, are these columns, very long columns. I think they're, how many columns, Georg? Six or seven.
I'm not quite sure how many.
6 or 8
8. Shannon says 8. Shannon must know.
8 long columns, and then under those columns are these huge sort of box structures, 2 box structures. So the assertion being made is that the pyramid that we see on the ground was sort of the tip of the pyramid, the tip of the iceberg. And the Egyptian authorities have been very consternated and have denied it and said that they're not going to allow any research to find out whether it's true or not. So we're left, as we always tend to be with these great mysteries, it's a mystery. Have you sorted out yet, Bob?
Okay. Is this better?
Yeah.
It seems it's the orange now.
It's better, is it?
but I think we can ask a few questions. Jim, did you have any
Yeah, I think
thoughts?
that the question that I would raise, given all the work that we've been doing with UFOs and extraterrestrials, one of the theories, as you know, for why the ancients had this knowledge was that they were given this knowledge by extraterrestrial advanced beings from other galaxies or other dimensions. And that is the origin story. What is your view? Do you think that the ancients just had this intuitively on their own? What's your feelings about the ET hypothesis, shall we call it?
So hopefully you can hear me. Essentially, I believe that DNA cryptographic key to the Akashic record. That is to say that what I showed in the brain is driven by your DNA. Therefore, you are when your DNA is minted, it produces certain fractal toroidal moments in your brain when you're thinking, and they are able to read and write to the Akashic record, this content universe-wide. When you die, that memory, that existence, those echoes of existence are there for all time. When your cryptographic key is minted again, you can access the information from the Akashic record. Now, if you are expanding your mind, you're changing the Q value on where you can receive information from, whether that's through meditation, whether that's through sleep deprivation, through psychedelics. There are a number of methods you can open the portal, and in which case you still need to interpret that information. If you're pulling it from a previous life, you might have developed the technology, or you might have been associated with developing the technology 1 billion years ago on another planet. And so you don't need to be downloaded the information. You're getting the information you already had because you had the cryptographic key in the Akashic record that you can access to pull that information out. But you don't need aliens to necessarily send this. However, if aliens wanted to get us to understand this information, they would broadcast on a broad spectrum this information using technological machines that would send out various fractal toroidal moment information packets that anyone with those genes and the ability to receive that information would get it. And so, it's either from previous existence, from a past life, or you are receiving from current people who have very similar genetics to you and can interact with your chunk of the Akashic record, or there are people that are broadcasting it. And so some people are susceptible to that. And I believe, for instance, Nikola Tesla was. I know one of the people I mention often is Alexander Shishkin. He told me categorically he does not believe he's inventing anything. He's just getting that information. And the reason I do everything open is because I don't believe I'm inventing anything. And I don't know whether I'm getting it from recent humans or I'm getting it from aliens. But I'm laughably lucky with my research. Let's that way, because I come up with an idea, I always assume it's someone else's, and then someone shows me a paper that was done 40, 50, 60 years ago, the work in it. So I don't know whether I'm remote viewing it or I'm seeing into the echo in the Akashic record or what.
And I think a subsequent question would be, how did this get lost? How did modernity get so lost, given the fact that the ancients seem to have the unified field theory already well in hand? Was it after the great floods of the Little Dryas, 12,000 years ago? How do you understand how we lost track of the plot?
Well, I firstly, they've left us all of the information in symbols. So they've given us everything we need to know. You just have to have the eyes to see it. And moreover, the technology is literally in our body. completely
Yeah,
in
I
our
agree.
body. We are the answer, in my view, to the program. In fact, I always said that I believed it was a bit pathetic of the prosthetics team at Star Trek rather, to just have a hominid with bits of plastic on their face. I realized that we are the answer program, so probably any sentient, pending changes in environment conditions and gravitational pressures, will look a bit like us, because they would have the same as the program. And the reason I can say with confidence is it doesn't matter what system I look at, you all see this fractal magnetohydrodynamic structure appearing. It doesn't matter whether you're looking at the structure of galaxies, the structure of sunspots, the structure of nuclear bonds, all the way down to its scale invariant. And the argument is that where does consciousness end and begin? I believe that the inside of a proton looks like this. And proton has its own space-time bubble. I asked this question of people recently. I said, imagine yourself inside a proton. What does it look like in there? It's a sphere, but like, what is it? I believe it's one of these structures, and it has its own space-time bubble, and it breathes in and out from the outer universe. It may actually have its own universe in the core of every single proton, as above, so below. So how do we lose it? Well, it might be that we develop this technology and its potential, and we destabilize the crust from it, from the core. Because when you use these weapons if you use them as weapons, then it produces an intense magnetic flux and affects the magnetic core. It may have been a solar coronal mass ejection, which I suggested in my interview with Matt Bell. And if you have a coronal mass ejection coming it has vast numbers of protons. When the vast numbers of protons hit the atmosphere, they hit ozone and they form water. So you get an immense flux of rain, and you also get an immense flux charge, which produce fantastic amounts of lightning, which would produce, as we found, iron-rich correlated microspheres that people assume are coming from meteorites, but they could be coming from the intense amount of lightning. Now, Robert Schoch suggested that it might have been a coronal mass ejection at Cosmic Summit last year, but he didn't know that this could produce the rain, and he didn't know that it can produce what people are saying are meteoritic fragments, although meteoritic fragments look like that as well. So it could have been a coronal mass ejection. It might have been a natural process of cleansing for the. And I argue that the Great Pyramid may be a means by which we can produce a shield from one of these events occurring. And I have a remote viewing, which I've had most of my life, that sometime in the 2030s, there will be an event, and it might be this kind of event. So this is why I'm passionate about getting the pyramid operational again. And I believe that we can use this technology very specifically, and I will walk through it in precise detail on Sunday, to scan the internal structures of the pyramid, in part because I want to see if other guys have actually got any basis for what they're saying, because their images are really very fuzzy and they're making some very, very detailed schematics out of some very, very fuzzy data. So I think this other technology will be far more real time than muon scanning, which takes a very long time. You're reliant on cosmic muons. That takes a very long time, very expensive. And I think we could nearly real time scan the pyramid down the volume of the pyramid using this technology, because these clusters, they travel up to 700 meters. According to Shishkin and the team at the Dubna Nuclear Science Center. And they travel through ordinary matter, but they're partially absorbed. So we can use this as a means of scanning. So yeah, I think probably it was the Younger Dryas impact or the Younger Dryas event. And thankfully, they wrote everything in stone for us.
But Bob, wouldn't you also say that right now, at this moment, this knowledge exists, or it has existed even through the history of humanity in some kind of clandestine manner, to put it mildly?
This is an absolute time when we need this. We absolutely need this now.
Exactly.
And I think people are waking up to it. When you understand every symbol of power is this thing viewed from different cross sections. Either top down is the Maltese cross, looking from the side is the fleur de lis, looking at the core is the yin yang, the Vesica Pisces and Chi Rho. I mean, the Chi Rho was on Thunderbolt coins from 300 BC in Macedonia, exactly and precisely. And what is a Thunderbolt coin? It's a ball lightning coin, right? So they, and what is Ko? It's Chi Rho. The Greeks were running Egypt, around that time. They would call it Chi Rho. And the center of the Chi Rho is the top of the grand step in the Grand Gallery. So the great step in the Grand Gallery, that is the dead Chi Rho, the Christ center of the Great Pyramid of Giza. And every single part of that structure precisely matches up to the magneto-hydrodynamic structure, even to the point of having the Grand Gallery 7 meters centered into the west from the center line. And the point at which the sarcophagus is, which I took a photo, which literally has an alpha there. I don't see the omega. Someone else took a photo and they said it has an omega. I don't see the omega. On my photo, it's definitely got the alpha, and that is precisely where matter gets reborn in our experiments. And what you need to take hydrogen, split it up, produce the chi from the hydrogen, because it's easier than condensing it from the cosmos, pass it through the pyramid in the phallico-soliton, it comes out and it gets born with a bit of calcium and oxygen, specifically calcium-43 and oxygen-17, into a white powder that has condensed chi in it. It's mana, it is the materia, it is the thing of alchemy.
Extraordinary. 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 How aligned, Bob, is your work with Nassim Haramein?
Nissim Haramein, did you say?
Yeah, Nassim.
I agree. Yes.
Because he's come out at the same
place
you are,
that
the toroidal structure being the basic working structure of the universe.
The toroidal structure as the model for the how everything works. It was all in here. This is Whitaker's 1910, right? But it was a thing that they were discussing in the 1800s. Okay, that is where it was at. It's fractal toroidal. It's not just a toroidal. This is where I depart from Nassim Haramein, because there's no means by which this thing can produce the thing that you observe in nature and that you see in experiment with just a straight toroid. And a lot of people talk about Beltrami vortex, where it's going a vortex and then it gets tightened until it's just a ring going round. So it's a force-free toroidal structure. But this is all emergent out of the fractal structure. And the fractal structure, you can do this experiment today. You can go and buy a $35 olic cleaner and you can see this process in action. Within fraction of a second, you're producing yin-yang structures and you're synthesizing heavier and lighter elements.
What cleaner? A $35? What should I buy?
A 35. If you go and look, that I've done a children's how-to in 4A, complete with the experiment conducted with macro photography, so you can see it happening. And it's called Ultra Experiment. And it goes through the whole process. You can, if you type in on MFMP's YouTube channel at MFMP, and you look at experiment, just search ULTR, you'll find a huge array of analysis of materials. And one of the images that I showed you with the galaxy on the yin, where the silver was formed, and the yang side with the boron crystals. Boron is aluminium minus oxygen and calcium is aluminium plus oxygen, some isotopes. So it's ripping oxygen out of the aluminium and going through the wormhole and it's coming out and fusing that to the aluminium in the yin. The yin is the ultimate destroyer. The female is the ultimate destroyer because the female demands that the male force goes out and destroys the environment to bring resources back to create new life. It's just the way the universe is, and people need to get over it. But you do need that Seth Horus kind of like balance. You need that balance between yin and yang always. If it's not in your own body, it needs to be in your life.
Yeah.
That's a nice conclusion. I've put the link to this simple, quick, repeatable demonstration in there. And I think we didn't get to speak about like all the practical applications we have to just be clear. What we're talking about here is actually at the basis of how the bumblebee flies, right? It shouldn't be flying based on our current understanding of aerodynamics. It's at the basis of the transmutation of metals, of gold, what Newton was after, and we thought these people were crazy back then. This is real. This is happening in these cold fusion experiments, new elements appearing out of nowhere because they're being rearranged by this principle you have described today.
It's not just rearranged. You can synthesize it out of order that you can't even detect. You're manifesting matter
out of the ether, out of
the ether, the relic neutrino, elementary dipoles, and clusters thereof. And so you have a matter synthesis, which we need for existence. We need matter. And some people say, oh, we can go and live on Mars, or we can live in space on an asteroid. You can't. Sooner or later, your body will fall apart because you need the chi flux going through you. So you'll need to have artificial chi generators or focus devices, which you will need to be in. Fortunately, things like the Egg spacecraft and the ARV, they will create an artificial flux of chi. So you'll be able to exist in those kind of crafts. The engine itself will provide you an artificial flux of chi to keep your body alive, because you need that flux through every atom in your body, every nuclei in your body, to keep everything in balance. You start to fall apart consciousness and physically. And you would not be able to live generations, even on Mars. We evolved and adjusted genetically as the planet grew, as it accumulated this matter into ordinary baryonic matter. Now you can transmute elements. This is important. Like if you go a planet where it's just got silicon dioxide, you can make all the elements for life from the silicon dioxide, okay, using the yin-yang process. And that's great, because then you can build an atmosphere and stuff. The actual structure itself produces a lower pressure of space-time in front and a high pressure of space-time behind. Effectively, it is a warp drive. And so if you can create a bubble where you've got that different space-time around you, in front, you have no resistance and no impact on your body. And you have a whole universe plus a bit extra is pushing from behind you. And this structure works by manipulating the thing that is the thing that causes inertia and gravity, and pulls it out of the way and adds extra behind you. So you're able to go, the faster you go, the faster you can go. It's absolutely beautiful. It generates its own power by doing that. So it's kind of like and the power available at any point in the universe. So the matter manipulation, like I said, teleported earlier, is because the matter does not live in the same universe, in its own little universe bubble. So nothing intersects with our universe, and it has no charge on the boundary. Just walk right through things. Ken Scholl observed this. So with matter, and so has Alexander Shishkin and his teams, and so have we, effectively. And so you can do teleportation. The communication thing is incredible, because there's zero time to communicate, because the limitation of relativity is if you've got a wave going through the medium, but if you've got spin, you lose that issue. And this produces this spin vortex that comes out. And so the spin vortex goes into the coherent condensate of relic neutrinos, which shares one wave function universe-wide through all matter. And when this single wave function material is pulled through as a stream through your ordinary matter, you can then impart information into the conscious field. And you gain information because every single atom in your body is doing that. You can will yourself better. You can join hands and focus prayer on improving other people's lives or the lot of, and you can do the opposite. And propaganda works in a negative way by convincing people to put information into the Akashic record that isn't even true. So when people are referring to their nearest and dearests, which they've got best access to, they start downloading untruths. So understanding this technology allows you to understand why propaganda is quite sick, why things like solitary isolation are quite sick, because you'll end up using the chi in your environment and so on, because all living creatures need this. You need to get outside. You need to get into nature. Nature is where it's at. That's where there's this constant flux coming through. You know, unnatural light bulbs are also not a good idea because, yeah, you don't get R9 light, and you also get the synthetic production of relic neutrinos, which people miss if they don't go outside, whereas tungsten filament light bulbs do produce them.
It's a fractal topic as well, right? It goes on and on and on. It is really astonishing all the work you've done on
But like
YouTube.
I say, we begin with
hours,
13 years of work.
Hours of content that you have put together, and it's all for free on YouTube. It's all for free on your website. And I think it's a great service, Bob. I really commend you for doing this. And yeah, I think you should be back, and there's much more to be discussed. And thank you so much for preparing this presentation for us today.
Yeah, you can join Bob for
Thank you. It was a pleasure to share some new research I've done, some that I've done in 21 and not been able to share. I just give you a little taster of the PIC stuff. I have a huge amount of material on the PIC stuff, a huge amount of material on Malta. It's breathtaking how much is known out there and how much there are secret societies that know precisely how this works.
Exactly.
And you're going to find that out in coming weeks and months.
Yeah. Thank you, Bob. This has been just marvelous. Would love to have you back for a deeper dive, because I think you're marshaling both ancient and modern information that is, if understood, gives us the golden key to understanding technology, cosmic design, the nature of beauty and art, you know, the continuity of life and death. It's really, really remarkable. And
why remote viewing works, how UFOs fly.
Yeah.
It's also about understanding reincarnation, and understanding possession, understanding psychosis. When your genetic code is very similar to someone else's, you can share information. If they're in phase, you're literally reading and writing to the same RAM. Mm-hmm. And that could happen to someone on the other side of the universe. Now, if they're a fish-like creature living in an aquatic environment, it must be creativity to you. You can't interpret the information other than drawing pictures of fish and things you're seeing in your imagination. But when it's a hominid that's living, like you have these people that are born, and my daughter was one. I didn't even know this was a thing. She'd write about her past life and draw pictures up until she was about 5. And she wouldn't call my wife her mummy. Say, this is my mummy, you're my other mum. And she only drew it up to like a 9-10-year-old. And she had these 6-fingered creatures that were about 3 times a normal height, or twice a normal human height times her height. And she would consistently draw this war where she was killed and her parents were killed. And this was all she was drawing for years. And so I was talking to my friend, and he says, "Oh, this sounds like one of these previous life people." And he talked about this guy in America who was born, and he remembered his old Japanese kamikaze squadron, and he knew the names and so on. And there was an American TV program that actually took it. He spoke Japanese, and they took him over to Japan, and he met the people that were in his squadron, but in his previous life. And so that you're more likely to have your cryptographic key reminted here because you're genetically similar, and there's an active life process going on Earth than you are. But when you understand this technology, you have zero fear of death. There's no fear
whatsoever of death, because you know you will be reborn again. You know it. It might be a 10 billion years from now, and you're going to have a blissful existence living anywhere at the same in that intervening time. Assuming you've played your cards right and been nice, because you know the spiritual entities out there, you know, you can have bad karma, it's there for always. So you got to, you know, the religion's got a lot of stuff right, really did. And when you understand that what they're showing, understanding this technology, yes, the interpretation is different, but really there's one answer. It's very simple and it's written in your face.
That's a wonderful. I want a T-shirt saying that. Bob, if you have some time, we're going to switch now to the after chat. It's a different Zoom where you can meet the people in the audience. If you have a few more minutes, I'll just send you the link with that.
Sure.
And so thank you so much, and see you in the after chat.
Have you sent me the link?
Yes,
I'll try and fix the connection in between.
That's great.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Georg.
Much.
Thank you, everyone. That'll bring us to a close for today. You can join Bob in the after chat. You'll see the link in the chat box. You received it in your Zoom reminders for today. And then enjoy your weekend, and we'll be back with Humanity Rising, same time, same station next week. Bye for now.